Hi, Sam. My name is Jen. I don't know if you remember me. You taught a class that I took in Atlantic City in, what is it, was October 2013. Um, it was an undercut bob haircut. I had blue and purple and pink hair. I'm gonna try and send a picture. I figured I would write an email, but I figured this would be a little bit easier to speak. I'm gonna, obviously write a little bit, but a video might be a little bit more personal. So I wanted to reach out to you for a few reasons. Hi, Ruby. So this is my dog, Ruby. She's a mix. Don't really know. I found her as a stray. When I went to Texas to visit my brother, she followed me into a hotel, and they had no idea where she came from. And I, looked for her owners and took her to the vet. She had no chip. Contacted some shelters and rescues and stuff, and I ended up just bringing her home to New Jersey. She's a wonderful emotional therapy dog, and she knows she's adorable, so she makes the most of it. But I wanted to reach out to you directly, and I apologize because I'm going to cry. I can already feel it now, so I do apologize about that. Sorry, I'm a medium, so at a certain point so when we met, I know you teach lots of classes, and you likely don't remember me, and that's fine. But I remember you suggesting that I look into becoming a platform educator, which is actually something that had been my dream. But that particular day, I ended up reconnecting with someone I had met when I was 16 years old on a dating site that allowed children on it. He had been like 18 or 19, I don't remember. But we'd kind of remained in touch. We met in person once. He went to one of my proms with me, and we remained in touch over the years, and we ended up getting lunch together. And about a couple months later, I ended up I started dating him. After I saw you a couple months, I started dating him, and then I ended up giving up my entire career in hair to move 3 hours to live with him, and then we got married. I'm gonna get to that in a second. So I'm a medium, and I'll get to that in a second. When I first started my career in hair, I made a really big mistake in that I had put I went into New York. I had my license in New Jersey, but I was going to try to apprentice in New York and, get started there and, try and get into film. And so I went and I had an interview at Tony and Guy. Went great. But I put all of my hope in working there, and I totally bypassed the opportunity because, I was 18 years old and just not thinking, and there was a lot going on, or I think I was 18 or 19 or 19. I was very young and very naive and very still, new to the world and still learning the big names in hair. And I had passed by an opportunity to work with John Sahag. And at the beginning of the epidemic, at the beginning of COVID, there were actually some messages from John regarding what happens in the 80s with the AIDS epidemic, and going around and giving haircuts, and some messages and stuff came through from him that I actually, before the salon that I was working at, when you and I, when I went to your class, you'll understand why I'm crying in a little bit. So I'm sorry that this is very hard and emotional for me. the salon that I was working at, sorry, I just realized I have my computer on my phone, so I have a hotspot. I'm gonna disconnect that while I finish filming this, so I don't like waste data. Salon I was working at, I had a client there. Her name is Jeanette Larson. She was an actress in New York in the 80s, and she was actually one of John's clients. And she was my client when I worked at the salon that I took the class to at. And she's, made some comparisons, and so it was just... And honestly, John had wanted me to talk to you about this 2 years ago, but I've kind of been... ended up in something that was like a luring situation, kind of at one point considered human trafficking. I'll get to that in a few minutes. I want to try and keep this chronological as much as possible. So I took the class from you in 2013. I met, reconnected with my now ex-husband, second ex-husband, that same day. New Year's Eve, we hung out, and then January, the middle of January, I think we started dating, and then I moved. I gave up everything, all of my friends, my doctors. I'm a cancer patient. I'm a chronic illness patient. I've been trying to figure out since I moved, and I've had a very hard time finding, good doctors. I have a few, but it's not good. I actually have like a massive medical malpractice thing, but I'll get to that. So I had given up everything, but my friends, my job, my clients, whom I loved, my home. I had moved home from Toronto. I went to Toronto to attend special effects makeup school. I went to school at Complexions International. I worked at a salon up there called Fuss Hair Studio, and I ended up on a television program called The Band Photo. It was spelled with an F. It was like a behind the scenes of bands having photo shoots. I did on-screen makeup. But I had gotten married first time to my first husband. I'm not even going to discuss that right now. But I moved up to Toronto, and went to school. I had planned on staying up there, but I ended up, my work permit wasn't renewed, and I was getting divorced, and I didn't know necessarily all of my rights, and then an ex-boyfriend of mine kind of had me convinced. He wanted to move to Portland, and he kind of had me convinced that we'd be moving to Portland together, and I was just like, okay, that's great, because there's a big film industry in Portland, and I'll be fine. And it never happened, so I basically gave up everything in Toronto again for another guy. He didn't even want me there, actually. I remember planning a special date for us when a special movie came out, and he invited his friend. And I remember saying, oh, I want to watch Carnival together, and I bought the series, and or someone gifted me the series. I don't remember which. And he took it and he watched it with all of his friends without me, and it's just I moved home from Toronto for this. I'm sorry, I don't mean to complain. So I had moved back in with my mom, and that's where I was living, and she had started dating and was getting remarried, and I had been living in she had gotten remarried by the 2013. She was remarried. I had been living in her house basically until she figured out what she wanted to do with it. I could have gotten my own apartment, but my second husband was pretty much just like, no, I'm gonna buy a house that's, blah, 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 and I was just kind of like, well, I had just weeks prior, gotten out of an abusive relationship where my ex used to steal my car and my cigarettes and my money, and he was using drugs and would blame it on me and tell me that basically he started doing heroin because I was attending school. I had actually dropped out I was taking online classes. I had aspirations to, continue in hair, but get a journalism, mass communications, and political science double major, and then going on to do psychology, and then eventually trying to use my experience on screen to sorry. You know, people ask like why do people, you know, give up their everything for a significant other, and in my particular case it's because I was raised by a conservative Christian family who they made it the most important thing in the world to, you know, protect my virginity, and you know, marriage was like the life goal. Like, obviously they wanted me to get a job, but I remember going out to eat with my parents, and you know, I liked you know, food, so I would be like a 6-year-old ordering bouillabaisse, and my dad used to joke and be like, you have expensive taste, you better marry a rich man, like not even putting it out there that he wanted his child to succeed and make as much money as possible and be happy. And you know, he would say things like that every now and then, but it was mostly like, it's your husband that does that. They actually didn't want me to get into hair because they didn't think it would be lucrative. Anyway, I had to point out that, you know, film industry, and then a friend's fiance, now husband, who was making, you know, 6 figures. I'd be like, this is a lucrative industry. Like, just look at what we as a family spends a month, like, getting haircuts. Anyway, I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm kind of losing track here. So I gave up everything. I didn't start doing hair when I moved because I would have had to rebuild my book when I moved to South Jersey. So I started working in auto sales, and I basically just I gave it up because I didn't know what was next. Like, it felt like this temporary, like I didn't really want to be there sort of thing. Again, because he basically like told me he loved me right away. Like the first night we hung out after New Year's Eve, he told me he loved me, and it was just kind of like, Oh, that's Stormy, by the way, the cat that just dropped by. He survived Hurricane Sandy as a kitten. He was found outside in a bush during the storm. He's my baby. He needs anal gland surgery. He has issues with his anal glands. They get really infected sometimes and impacted, and like it's gross, but he also has urinary tract issues, and he's lost a tooth since we've moved into this situation 2 years ago. And I've found some, you know, charitable vets and stuff, but this is a very complicated situation. So basically, my second marriage became very abusive, not physically, thankfully, psychologically, emotionally, medically. I got really, really, actually, I ended up on disability pretty much five days after we got married. I ended up very, very sick. He got mad at me. He was pretty much mad at me for being sick. I was physically disabled. I lost the ability to really use my left arm and hand, and then it moved to the right side, and then the upper torso, and then the lower torso, and then the legs. Like, I was partially paralyzed for a while. Eventually, like, I started getting these shimmer, I don't know why I wanted to call it shiver, like, muscle spasms that then have since developed into, like, full limb flailing. It's terrifying. But I lost 50 pounds before he even noticed. I had a period of a 9-day blackout period where I might have had a stroke or a TIA or some sort of neurological issue. Where I remember just being on the couch, barely able to breathe, barely able to move, barely able to see. And it just felt like, I want to call it severe depression, but I don't think that's what it was, because I didn't want it, like, it wasn't that I felt depressed, it was just like this, and I could not set, like, 70% of my vision, just like this black tunnel for 9 days, laid on the couch. I think we went to the beach once, because we were near the shore, so we could look for Pokemon, but that was pretty much all we did. And then later I asked him why he didn't take me to the hospital, and he like freaked out. How dare you ask for emotional support? I pay your bills. And it's just like, I don't care about the bills. I don't want to die. And like, I could barely, like, anyway, I'm sorry. I don't need to start abuse. So, I left But I was at the point where I can barely form sentences. I had an employer call me retarded because I could barely function at work. I had potentially had a stroke in 2019, so my face is doing this weird things now. You can see it was the right side. It, like, my forehead only wrinkles on the one side now, and like this is my resting face. Like, anyway, so I'm sorry if my face is distracting. I had a friend reach out to me to try and be nice, and I legitimately I didn't respond to her for a year. She hasn't responded. I think she just thought I wrote her off and then blocked me. I couldn't respond to her for a year because I didn't want to project on her because things were so bad. But I didn't know that I had legal rights. Like, I had basically, when I married this man, within 5 minutes of us leaving the courthouse, we got married in front of two of his friends. No one knew. No one knew. At least initially. But he basically told me the moment I left that he owned me, that he legally owned me, and I had to Google my legal rights and prove it to him, and I don't think he believed me. Because it was after we married that he disclosed to me that he didn't believe in women's rights. Basically, he fell in love with a fantasy of a 16-year-old widow, because that's what it was when I met him. My boyfriend had just committed suicide when I met him, or prior to meeting him, I should say. He had passed away 3 months prior to when I met John. It was an intentional heroin overdose, by the way. It was suicide by, to my knowledge, it was 27 bags, because he had tried 15 the first time, and he woke up and ended up in rehab. Anyway, sorry. In 2 days, so what is that, Monday? Monday is going to be the 20th anniversary of his death. And we just passed the 15th anniversary of my aunt and uncle's plane crash. And that's important, because my ex-husband, my second husband, didn't know this, but I'm essentially a witness in an FBI case the FBI chose not to prosecute, and it involves my aunt and uncle's plane crash and a will scandal that happened afterwards. The estate still has not distributed, by the way. It's been in litigation for years and years and years. Basically, I escaped. I moved. I didn't take alimony. I fled. He left me. We agreed on a limited divorce, so I could stay on his insurance, because that was why he married me, basically. When I moved home from Toronto and he found out I had cancer, he was just like, no, let's get married. You can have my insurance. And I was like, dating somebody, and just like, no, dude. Essentially, he wanted me on his insurance. I had insurance at the time, but he wanted me on his insurance. So he kept me on his insurance. I moved in with my mom because I had no other place to go. It's not like she recommended me to get an attorney. She bought herself a house, had me move in, and then immediately tried to take control of my finances. Like, complete disregard for the fact that I gave up an entire career, an entire life, everything for this man. And anyway, she and her husband, she is a treasurer, and he is a co-pastor at a church. The church that they are affiliated with is primarily a church of color. I have not been there myself. To the best of my knowledge, it's primarily Latin and Black, but I don't know. I only know from the few members that I've met in person that had come to their house for church meetings and stuff like that. And from one of the church meetings where my mom said the demographic consisted of, I think she said 7% Caucasian and 93% minority. So I don't know specifically like what the demographic is, but that's Anyway, they are racist. Whether they admit to it or not, they are racist. And the moment I had moved into that house, I tried to leave. I had no place to go. I had no money. I had been in debt for various reasons, which, I've actually asked the IRS to audit me. I hope that they do. So I had actually asked several people for help with that situation, and nobody did anything. And it was basically just like, deal with it, like just ignore it, pretend that it's not happening, and that's what everybody says. Is just like, ignore it. I had put my blinders on and tried to pretend that it wasn't happening. I was trying to focus on preparing my dog and my cat for small apartment living. We had a very small, like 8x8 bedroom. So I had at the time been painting. And I would spend most of my time meditating, working on self-reflection, things of that nature. My mom regressed into thinking I was a child again. And actually, sorry. Hi, Ruby. So eventually, like, I had started dating again, and I was having a very hard time, and I'm not going to get into that. You don't need to know all that. These are very personal things that can be discussed later. So basically, I had a series of health issues. One of them being the muscle spasms that I told you about. Essentially, I had, in 2018, what ended up starting as those muscle spasms, but then morphing into that violent flailing, and it would be like my whole body, including head, neck, everything, lasted for 2 hours the first time that it happened, and my mom took me to the emergency room. So I've had thyroid cancer. I've had 3 surgeries, 113 lymph nodes removed, a full thyroidectomy, 2 parathyroids. I didn't know this. We should have told them at the hospital, but I didn't know. First off, I'm not an epileptic. Secondly, I have 3 surgical clips in my neck. My head was flailing so much. I recognize after that I had very, very serious brain fog, very serious cognitive issues. But I should have been on a stretcher. I was not. I was sitting upright, so my head was not restrained and just all over the place. Again, I have the first 5 minutes of this happening on video, so at least you can see that. And I'm sure there are plenty of people who remember, especially the person who checked me in, because he was like in shock. And at no point did my mom say that I was not an epileptic, and I actually couldn't talk because I was moving so fast. I could barely talk. So that happened, and then just like the succession of bad choices happened, not because I wanted to make them, but because I was so... Anyway, some things have happened. I ended up working at getting a job at a court reporting agency doing transcript production. And when I started, for some reason, like, my mom thought if I brought her to work, they would hire her. And something I need to say is, I had been very hesitant about moving in with her because she is, as much as she'll say no, she has narcissistic personality traits, if not disorder, at least traits, that were developed likely as a survival skill, if not a, neurological hardwiring. For the majority of my childhood, I was forced to just do whatever my mom wanted because it made her happy. Regardless of what it meant for me. And I also, so I'll get to that in a minute. So I started working at this court reporting agency. When I got there, it was a shit show. It was an absolute shit show. The person who, they had been running the business for a while, but no one had any office management experience, despite there being an office manager. There are certain things that definitely were questionable, and I questioned them, and I was, given answers, and I had so much on my plate, I didn't necessarily recognize what was going on. we moved. I had to do a lot of, stuff when we moved. Eventually, I started like putting things together and kind of um, noticing stuff, and they're like, I essentially at one point might have had a whistleblower case against them, and I say that because basically, all right, let's start at the beginning of 2019, and I apologize, I'm all over the place right now. I have been trying for 2 years to talk about this, but so, all right, let me start. So at the beginning of 2019, I had basically the television show that I worked on in Toronto, Band Photo. There was an episode that we did with an artist called Peter John, who was part of a group called Let's Go to War. Now this show aired on Ox TV, which at the time had just launched, and it was a brand new national music television show, and Band Photo was one of their very first programs. I think it aired on Thursday nights at 8, I think. But it was a national channel. The episodes are still available online. I'm not going to link you unless you respond and ask for them. But you might not. It's okay. I'm not promoting the show by any means. So one of the episodes, we did it on location at a barbershop, and this was like an old barbershop with an old barber who essentially sexually assaulted me while some of the crew members watched. There's a fight, flight, fear, freeze, fawn. Sorry, I don't know why I keep saying fear. I froze. Because it reminded me of my childhood, and I snapped. Like, I froze. There were crew members that saw. Had they stopped it, they would have stopped what happened next. And what happened next was this man racially assaulted our guest, Peter John. And he basically made comments about wanting to, basically saying that it was because his mother didn't have sex with an Italian man that he was a insert racial slur, which I'm not going to use. Now, this was unscripted. It aired on television. There was never an explanation. And had they stopped my attack, they would have stopped that. So the host for the show, in March, it was either the end of February or beginning of March 2019, posted a photo from that episode right before the barber incident happened. Right before he insulted Peter John. While he was still, he ran his hands up and down my arms, my behind, like just all over my body. And I was wearing a dress, and tried to sneak his hand, and was talking in Italian. The hairstylist on the show, her name is Anastasia. She actually did the hair on Schitt's Creek. She speaks Italian, and she was just like, you don't want to know what he's saying. You don't want to know what he's saying. But yeah, so 10 years after the fact, without talking to him, not even being social media connected to him anymore, she chose to, despite there being 3 locations and different photos from the entire day, use a barbershop photo to promote herself. 10 years later. Now, Ingrid has a history of doing things that are probably not the most appropriate. There was a horn outside. I don't know if you heard that, so I'm taking that as a sign from the universe to tell you this. So after I moved home from Toronto, Ingrid did a series of advertisements for Seneca cigarettes, and I believe some of them she was wearing a Native American headdress or a Native Canadian headdress. She's Swedish. Anyway, so I'm sorry. I I had addressed it, and so basically I addressed the photo because the sound guy, and I have screenshots of this, I can show you. The sound guy basically was just like, oh, that's the barbershop. Like, that guy was such a character. Oh, that's the barber. And they just, like, dismissed it as, like, normal barbershop behavior. Like, no, we can't just dismiss this. 10 years later, like, neither of those two people who were in this conversation have ever been discriminated against because of their race before. What was that? I just got an alert for an earthquake in Japan the moment I said that, and I need to let you know. So this is alright. So this has been on for I've been filming for 30 minutes now. This happened about 20 minutes ago. So 10 minutes in, the earthquake started. I've actually, since being stuck moving into this house and this situation, I've actually found a correlation between solar weather and earthquakes. Is actually quite fascinating. There have been multiple earthquakes that have occurred and not the alerts come through 20 minutes later, but there have actually, and I have proof of this, multiple earthquakes that have occurred when I've sent people photos of sandwiches. Anyway, so I had reached out to Peter John. He just kind of was like, I'll talk to Ingrid, and then I never heard from him again. And it's just like, okay, well, there are things that I have to do in my life that involve me bringing this up, and you're just like pretending that it didn't happen, it didn't exist. Okay. Because after I moved into this situation, I reached out to him again, and he was just like, don't contact me. And the thing is, like, the moment, so I had what I believe, and I'm fairly certain I have enough medical documentation to prove this, and also still physical, like, the right side of my face moves on its own. Sometimes if I get zits right around here, I pop them, my mouth moves on its own. Like, there are days that I don't know if you saw my eyebrow, there are days that I'll wake up and, like, I have a smirk. Also, I found out as an infant I had a neurological disorder that I was treated for 3 years at a children's hospital for. Basically, I went to a children's hospital for the majority of my youth up until the time my family moved to a different town, and then I didn't ever go to the hospital again. And while I was seen by doctors, the majority of my health issues were normalized because that's just what my parents did. Like, I got very sick when I was 8 years old. Like, I had bronchitis, chickenpox, and pneumonia all at the same time. I was out of school for the first 6 weeks of the second grade. The hospital wanted to hospitalize me. They wanted me to be in the hospital, and my parents just decided to keep me at home instead. I think my dad's like, he didn't want them to stick me full of needles and test on me. And it's just like, no, I am very sick. I need the hospital. Nope, I spent it at home instead. Makes me wonder if the issues that I've been having my entire life, whether or not they would have been addressed had I continued my, children's hospital. Anyway, like, seriously, we moved, and anyway, so I ended up having what I believe to be a stroke. I will describe, because I potentially have a massive medical malpractice suit. I'm not going to describe it to you. I'm waiting to hear back from an attorney. Essentially, so I woke up, I was house sitting. I ended up getting this massive headache. It felt like there was an ice pick stabbing the back of my skull. It's excruciating. It was the Friday of Memorial Day weekend. I went to bed. I could not move. I could not function. I was in excruciating pain. I could only get up to take the dogs out. Saturday, Sunday, both days, I slept the entire time. I could not function. It was excruciating pain. On Monday, I woke up. The pain was gone, thankfully, but the right side of my face was paralyzed. Anyway, I'm not going to describe anything else that happened, but I did notice, again, some cognitive issues. Like, prior to that, I had been on birth control for the first time in years, and it made me go a little nuts, which is why I stopped it. And then several weeks later, like 3 or 4 weeks later, is when I had the stroke, potential stroke. Again, I'm not going to get into all my medical health. I want to focus on what's been going on, what's important to talk about. So, I had been trying to talk to my mom and her husband about the racism for a long time. And it was very difficult because her husband is a misogynistic, bigoted asshole. To the point where there were comments at a certain point in time where he doesn't believe rape or sexual assault exists. I had been dealt with some stuff at a job that I had, and basically, like I had been grabbed by someone, and then I had a couple of individuals, and the individuals that did this did not bother me. It was the grabbing and what occurred in that particular incident that was bad, but there were 2 individuals who I had asked to use the restroom, and they offered me the men's room. I had very short hair at the time, and I do have, I'm non-binary, gender fluid, so that didn't bother me. But what bothered me was, when the guy grabbed my arm and then the whole incident that happened. But anyway, so her husband's response when I was talking to her about this was, you should just fucking say, me too, and they won't do anything to you. Just like that. Not even an empathetic, sympathetic, just do this. Like, making fun of me. Like, this is my life. And my mom's religious beliefs are that women don't have any rights. Everything goes to their husband. Everything. But she believes it, but, like, it doesn't apply to her. But she'll just sit there and just be like, ignore him and just pat him and then not say anything. And it's just like, the stuff they had talked about it, like, they would go and do their thing at church and then come home and immediately start criticizing and making fun of and talking shit about their congregation. And a lot of it racially motivated. There was a certain point during, I think it was 2018, yeah, it would have been January 2018, I believe, where there had been a Trump speech, and I remember walking in on them, having a conversation about how the conversation they were having was that the media uses the word immigrant to confuse and conflate people into believing that illegals are human. That was the conversation. I actually had a massive PTSD episode. I could barely, I didn't know what the fuck to do. I had reached out to someone. I kind of like blacked out. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. If I will be homeless if I leave. I don't know what to do. So I to be entirely honest, like I just kind of, I detached from reality. Now, in August 2019, I remember her and her husband coming home from from church and talking about the service, and basically my mom saying something, oh, why did, and whoever the guy's name was, give the service in English and then go give the whatever the thing was called that she was talking. It wasn't a eulogy, but it something, one of those words. And then give that in Spanish. And her husband's response was, they're breaking bad habits. I wouldn't bring my daughter there. It would turn her off to God more. This is your congregation, sir. The United States of America does not have an official language. This is your congregation. They have previously made comments about how one of their congregation members being deported was God's will. And I get that this is a church and people can have religious beliefs, but there is a fine line. And not even a fine line, there is a big fucking line where you know when you cross it. Sorry, I'm all over the place, and I apologize. So I had decided I was like, I can't, there's no, we cannot do one thing and say something else and live this split mentality, because that is what is forced in that sort of mindset, that letting go and letting God. But you're just like pretending it's not happening and going, no, we're not pretending it's not happening and going, we need to be here. And that is what happened, is that I came here. And I did my best. I'm not at all trying to, this is just gestures, and I'm so sorry. I'm all over the place. I ended up recording 2 conversations. There were 3 conversations. I should have recorded the second one. I recorded the first and the third. The first, I misheard what her husband said, and said the wrong thing in the third, because I didn't listen to the first conversation prior to having the second or the third. I couldn't. My PT, I could not. I was so enraged. So basically, I had asked them. They came in from church. They were unloading groceries. I was like, "How was church?" And Mom's like, "It was good. It was good." And her husband just chimes in all chipper, "For the white people." I said, "What was that?" "It was good for the white people." What do you mean? "Well, I really enjoyed the music. There were so many." Now, I thought he said brown. He did not. However, when it was implied by him saying "for the white people," so I do apologize in the second, because I when I talked to my mom about it in the third conversation, which she is aware of both of these recordings, by the way. I said brown. I apologize. It was not intentional, but it is what he implied. Like, what he said was, there were, because it was for the white people, because there were so many Spanish people, he felt like he was in the Caribbean. I called him out on it. He told me I was wrong, and then stopped talking, and didn't speak a word to me afterwards. Has not spoken a word to me since. They left. I left. I attempted to record a video about it, basically, that went on to discuss about how if we don't do anything about racism, we are Nazis. I decided not to upload it. After having a conversation with a Lyft driver, who I was all over this. I went to a coffee shop so that I could use their Wi-Fi to try and upload the video. I explained to him what happened, because he had actually seen me walking around while I had it. It was filming the video. I didn't upload it. I think there might have been some miscommunication. It broke my heart, because this man was telling me that he was from Haiti, and he dealt with racism all the time with his wife's parents, and he just dealt with it, and that's just to ignore it, just let it happen. And it's just like, no. So this was the same weekend there had just been shootings at churches. It like just happened the day before or 2 days before, and it's just like, no, dude, we don't just, sir, you deserve, you are worth so much more than dealing with your in-laws and just putting up with it. Like, no, sir, that's, I'm so sorry you go through that. But I decided to not upload the video. There was a second conversation where, and I am about to scream right now, and I do sincerely apologize for that. Basically, my mom regressed into thinking I was a child, and she had been unhappy with the fact that I didn't want any part of her life while I was living there. This was meant to be temporary. I was trying to get on my feet after an abusive marriage. This was their first purchased home as a married couple. We also, one of the things that she views people like me, liberal, non-conservative Christians, as the enemy, basically. She'll say that's not true, but with her actions, her thoughts, her intent, that is what she actually means. She didn't like the fact that I have back issues where I have to sleep on the floor, very firm surfaces. She didn't like the fact that I was sleeping in this tiny room on the floor, and it's just like, no, this is not a sign of depression. This is me preparing to live in a 200 to 300 square foot studio apartment. And I have a hard time sleeping on mattresses. My dad spent like the last 5 to 10 years of their marriage sleeping on couches, in chairs, and on the floor for the same reason. Like, I get that at a certain, I'm not even, I'm not going to get into her health issues and stuff. I'm just going to focus. I apologize. She basically, told me, I'm going to tell you what I told you when you were 12 years old and you wanted to run away. Just go ahead and try! That is a threat. To a 34-year-old twice divorced individual, that is a threat. To any individual, that's really a threat. There was a third conversation after that where basically she just got mad at me for remembering that she was racist and tried to basically say that I was wrong and that I had said, this is, I think I said, no one's really illegal on stolen land, especially when a majority of the people who, they consider illegals are people who come from, have Native and Aboriginal heritage, that were forced out of the country. And her response was that no, God won a war, and it was like, that conversation is recorded. But it needs to be noted, like, one of the things I called her out on was using, so she does the children's ministry, and she was using books from the 80s that praised conquerings of savage nations to be Christianized. She was using this for children's sermons to children who deal with hate and intolerance and things that she herself has no knowledge, experience, or, could even comprehend. Now, I know nothing about her childhood or what she's been through because basically her life prior to my being in it was apparently none of my business. I would even tell her things like when she started dating her husband that it was not a healthy relationship, and I was very concerned for her, and she would basically start screaming at me and tell me, how dare you, you're my child, you know nothing, it's none of your business, blah, blah, blah. So, pretty much in the same manner that go ahead and try. So, I left. When I left my marriage, I had been in debt. It took me a year to find a job where I earned a decent income. I had planned on filing bankruptcy. Because I'm in this estate issue, it makes bankruptcy, this estate thing, it makes bankruptcy a bit harder to deal with. And I did not have any legal representation at all. Had I had legal representation, I would have immediately dropped out of any claim and asked to be removed as a beneficiary, immediately, because of the fact that I'm a witness to something they decided not to prosecute, and it has to do with, will fraud. So I'm actually in the process of trying to be removed from the estate. Pretty much because after I moved, I decided to do, there were a few things. First off, I had a very hard time finding an apartment. I didn't have much money. My dad sent me money. Thankfully, my dad sent me $5,000 so that I could, because all of the money that I was making at this job, I had been basically using to feed myself. I had been trying to open a business. So I was investing in the business, and I was feeding myself, essentially. I'm a medical cannabis patient. I've been steadily losing weight for many, many years, to the point where I could literally, it sometimes takes me 2 to 4 hours to eat a meal, and I have to smoke a lot of weed in order to eat it all. And then there are days, again, there was an occasion where earthquakes were happening when I would eat a third sandwich, and I would send a particular individual a photo of my sandwich and check later or get an earthquake alert 20 minutes later, and it's just like, I really need 3 sandwiches. So I left. While I was as a medium, there was, I'm gonna look her name up right now, because I do this, I've done this before. Prior to my moving, the business that I was going to open a tarot and crystal healing business. But hold on, it was, So I had. There we go. Hold on, that was. Hold on, what was her name? Sorry. I wanna give her as much respect as possible. It was. Is that her name? Why can't I? Oh my goodness! I'm not even kidding you. It was. So basically, I can't remember her name. In 2019, I want to say maybe it was May or June. It might have been June. I'm not gonna look her. I've looked her up in the past using I think the same phrase that I use now, and for some reason I'm not able to find her. Let me see if I can try one. Basically, I had this vision of someone being pulled out of the trunk of a car and being shot in the head. I don't know if you heard that outside. It sounded like fireworks. There's another one. What was her name? I want to say it was Sophie, but I might be incorrect. She is an older civil rights leader. She'd been found dead, but I basically witnessed her had a vision of her murder prior to it happening. However, when I had the vision, I didn't know that it was her. I thought I saw it as myself, and I was quite terrified because I was concerned. And then a little later on, it didn't. A little later on, it clicked that it was her, but during my period of homelessness, I had a rental car that I considered sleeping in, but then I was going to fold the seats down and sleep in the trunk. But it's an automatic start, and if the keys are anywhere near the car, you can open the door. Meaning me being inside the car sleeping in the trunk, someone from the outside, even if I had it locked, someone could unlock it from the outside. So there was no way to do that. I had no way to sleep in the car. I had to find places to stay. So there were some people. I had a friend who she was preparing to get married. She let me stay at her house. We had a bit of a falling out while I was staying there, and I told her, later on I texted her. I was like, I can't afford to go to your wedding, and I didn't want to add any extra stress because my staying at her house, it seemed to add extra stress. And while I was there, it came to me that I should do a video about. So I went to an alternative high school as a child. I say kicked out. It wasn't kicked out. It was like I was asked to leave because of my learning disabilities, and they just didn't want to deal with me at the school. I was given 3 choices. Not everybody gets choices. I was given choices. I had the chance for a school that was more on disciplinary, a school that was more on mental health and wellness, and then a school that was a gifted and talented school. I went to the one that was more therapeutic. I didn't learn much because basically I just sat there and I either watched television shows, read books, or would take naps. And a lot of our class, we had half days. One day a week was entirely dedicated to field trips. It was very therapeutic and very relaxing. But the point of the school, it was very helpful, and a lot of the kids that went to I'm not complaining about that. There are other things, but I was not prepared for the world afterwards. But it was a very healthy place for me at that point in time, because then my boyfriend committed suicide, and I was dealing with that. I was dealing with what was going on with my life. My parents focusing on the most important thing in the world to them was my virginity, and because I wasn't a virgin anymore, I was going to hell, and just all they failed as parents and forcing me to go to all of these abstinence before marriage courses, even though I had only been with one person and was like in a committed relationship with one person. Like, anyway, so I decided to make a video about alternative schools. I had asked someone who was a childhood friend of mine if she wanted to contribute her story, because we went to the same home high school, but they had me go elsewhere and she stayed in a program that they had in the school. I had rehearsed it. I was very passionate in the video. I discussed a couple of things. Basically, I had been misdiagnosed as a child, and it's not something I've really talked about publicly, but I had just started to because it's part of my healing process. Basically, there are a lot of things, but my mom kind of used psychology and therapists and stuff as a way to abuse me because I wasn't being the child that she wanted. Like, I stopped doing homework because I had learning disorder, because I had I had so many social skill issues. I am looking forward to sitting down with someone for many hours and going over every single detail from my entire life, because she doesn't believe what she doesn't want to believe, basically. And I'm at a point where it's like, I don't care if you gave birth to me, you don't own me. There are other people's lives that are at risk here. Other people that she has put at risk. We'll get to that. So I had done this video, and I think, so I do often get aphasia. I struggle with either like a loss of words, using the wrong word, or just like, I've had instances where I've sat down and tried to write an email and written one paragraph in a 16-hour period. Like, sometimes, and I use the wrong word, and I didn't go to college. I had been fairly isolated with my second husband, and what I had suggested, like, I go back to school, and he was just like, no, this is you work now. School is over. You're too old. Like, you work now. Like, it was... I have been listening to lectures and podcasts and stuff, and trying to do the best to educate myself, but sometimes I do, especially in times of duress and stress, like, fall back on simple words and things. Like, I used the phrase, I've contacted the media, because I've worked in film, and it's all media, television, film. Like, I use the wrong word. Like, basically, at a certain point, I moved, when I moved into this house, my mom started stalking me from the moment I left, like, stalking me. There were other people stalking me as well, but at a certain point, she started using the cops to hold me hostage in my house. And at one point, someone called the police for social media posts, and I actually have multiple times social media posts. Like, I was taking a nap one day, and the cops were called because, she's posting on the internet again. Like, what does that even mean? I am sleeping. What am I posting on the internet? I have video, and in the video I tell them that I've contacted the media. I didn't mean it in the way that people imply it now. I meant it like, we need to look at etymology and understand where words come from, and where, like, sometimes with my mental health and my general health, like, my brain pulls words that I remember from childhood. My dad at one point had been an attorney, so I'll use the word, like, albeit a lot, sequestered quite often. So, like, like, I isolated, like, I've been sequestered. Like, I do that all the time. So, like, that's why I pulled media, but, other people might view it as something else. Anyway, so I moved, and the person whose wedding I was unable to attend, I had sent her a text message because I was afraid to call her. She was going through a lot, and I had she had agreed to the 1st or the 15th that I could stay at her fiance's house had been on the market. He moved into her house, and they allowed me to stay at his house while I was looking for an apartment. I found apartments. I wasn't able to secure apartments because my bankruptcy lawyer had failed to file paperwork. He had also lied to me about the failing date, and then he didn't tell me that he failed to file paperwork. And the reason he failed to file paperwork was because the amount that he submitted to the trustee was not accepted. And he didn't think to ask me if I could pay another amount. I could have. I absolutely could have. And it was his negligence that led to my credit dropping from about 750 to the 500s and being unable to get an apartment. This house that I'm in right now that you see behind me, so my landlord is someone I met through his brother. His brother is someone I had zero intention of meeting. I actually had stopped talking to him. I had been trying to distance myself from him. We met on Tinder. I had no intention of dating him. None. I had already been seeing somebody else. I had been using basically to try and relearn social skills because I had, from the abuse, I'm not going to get into that. I had a very hard time with social skills. And I had the two people that I had been in community, like the two friends that I had in the area, well, not even the area, just the two friends that I had at the time, or thought were my friends at the time, I kept telling them, I don't know how to communicate. And their response was, just be yourself. And I was just like, do you not understand what battered woman syndrome is? It's not that I don't recognize me. That's not it. I'm not allowed, I haven't been allowed to be myself. I had detached so much from reality. Like, how do people be themselves? What words? What words are? Like, no, what words are? I don't word. I had been basically told communication didn't exist, everything that was a lie. We would watch things like Modern Family, and I would point to my ex and be like, look, they're having, this is how people talk. No, it's not. You're reading too much into it. You're a liar. That's a lie. I'm sorry, he didn't call me a liar. He said, that's a lie. Sorry, I got very worked up there. But, hi. Thank you. She's very good at emotional support, right? She actually used to, when my ex and I, even if he was just talking to me like this, if the tension was there and she knew there was hate, she would actually put herself physically between the two of us and just start barking at him. Because he was mad at me for being on the medical cannabis program. It was the only thing that helped with my pain and helped me eat food, but he would intentionally wait for me to smoke and then abuse me. Because if he didn't fuck with me, then who else would? I'm not even lying. So I moved. I don't know why I said I'm not even lying. I moved. I'm sorry. I'm all over the place, and I'm so sorry. The person whose wedding I didn't attend just started attacking me out of nowhere. She sent me texts that I broke her heart. She lost her best friend. And I was just like, well, we could work. No, I don't think we can work through things. And it got to the point she just kept insulting me. And eventually I'm just like, you're right. I've been living in a fantasy land. But through text message. Text messages are different. Hi, Ruby. Now, it needs to be known that she did not know that I likely had a stroke. In 2019, I had not told anyone because I knew I had a medical malpractice suit. She did not know my dad was in the hospital in Italy. She did not know my mom had threatened my life. She did not know She did not know I did not take alimony from either of my ex-husband, and that my first ex-husband was the primary reason for my first bankruptcy, and that he spent at least $70,000 of the $150,000. I had $150,000 of debt. At least $70,000 of it was his. The $70,000 I had at the time when I had my job and everything. I was at a point for 1 year in my life. Because when I moved, the economy had crashed in the United States, and then when we met, my career had just started to get up again, and then I moved for my ex, and anyway. basically, again, I had this guy, his name is Shakim, he waited until after I had that 2-hour episode, and I kept telling him, he like, out of nowhere, he just messages like, I think we should meet now. Like, we may have talked like a day or two before then, but I had been stopping to, I didn't know how to say no because I didn't think I was allowed to say no. I had been at the point where if people were to say specific action, like command words, like when people tell their kids, like, go say thank you. Even as an adult, up until recently, I would be the one to say thank you. Like, go say hi. Tell Jennifer hi. And I would just say hi. And they're like, no. Like, we're telling them to say, like, say hi. Like, no, not you, the kid. Like, the command, like, that was where I was at. And I had such bad, like, I didn't plan. He made it out to be like we would just meet as friends. Anyway, I'm not going to get into the details of that, but he eventually in 2019, he had, and I had been dating someone else at that point. We kind of stopped seeing each other for a while, and then we reconnected in 2019, and then I started working for Shakim's brother. Shakim's just like, oh yeah, my brother, he flips homes. I'm doing the logo for his company. He's looking for someone to do countertops, make them look like marble. Can you do it? It's like, yeah. So I did. I went to one home. I didn't get to see it finished. He did not allow me to do prep or finish work. He just had me pour epoxy. He made fun of me for having a toolbox on a work site. He oogled me the entire time. Now, pouring epoxy is very sticky. I was wearing very form-fitting clothing. He oogled me the entire time. I did it 3 times. He told me I wasn't. He like suggested he set me up with someone. I'm like, no, I'm good, thank you. There were anyway. A lot of stuff happened. Basically, while I was homeless, I could feel his brother projecting on me because he had said at a certain point he had considered, I'm not going to say what happened first because I don't remember which happened first, whether he had suggested that he had said that he had been considering doing porn, or if I was the one who said that I was considering doing cam work because I was homeless. Now, I had regressed to a point where I remember, like, had flashback to Toronto when there were wanted cam model $12 an hour webcam sex work flyers all over Toronto. That's what I regressed to in my moment of homelessness, where my mind went. I had mentioned about this house. I was like, do you think your brother would mind if I did that? Like, I wasn't actually going to do it because I could feel him. He kept trying to insist that I become a stripper. I didn't want to become a stripper. My first husband gave out nude photos of me to people he wanted to have sex with without my permission. Like, I don't want to be a stripper. Why do you keep saying... And it's not like I would just flat out say, no! It was kind of just like that, I felt all of this... Like, I didn't have a right to myself, and I was just like... No, that's okay. Thank you. I'm flattered. But I kept trying to get me to be a stripper. I'm like, no. No, thank you. I'm good. But I regressed and started momentarily thinking about cam work. And then I had, while I was living in a motel, I very briefly was on the website seeking arrangements. I went on for less than a 24-hour period. I talked to 2 people. One person who nearly immediately asked me for credit cards, nearly immediately asked me for a bank account, and then another person who, sorry, I have cat hair on my face. That's why I'm itchy. Another person who had me to go off the website, which was fine. I stayed off the website. I think I went back on for 5 minutes, and then I went back. I just deleted the account. It seemed like a scam, and so I was just like, no, I don't want this. And I did it to try and not move into this house. But I realized like that is not me. I've never been that kind of person. I'm demisexual. I'm not like, I need the emotional intimacy. And I need to be honest, with aphasia, I had used the wrong word at a certain point and said pansexual. It's very different, and I know that, and I don't mean to offend anyone, and I'm sincerely sorry. It's very difficult for a lot of people to understand what it's like, unless they've been in a situation like where I was, where it's like you're digging yourself out of this mental hole because everyone's like, you know, and it was after I said that was actually when my mom threatened my life. That was when my mom threatened my life. I sent it in a text. I told her that I didn't feel safe, because of something she had previously said to me, in my youth, that actually it had to do with, it was something that she said that was very hateful in my youth, and that I didn't feel safe with her, and then she came in and she threatened my life. So, where was I? Oh yeah. So I stopped, but for the brief period of time while I was on it, I mentioned something in passing to my coworker. I had two coworkers, one who was, rarely in the office, at that point in time, and the other one who was there frequently. But I would just say we weren't friends. We didn't know each other. She would tell me that all of her friends were cops, and I knew she drinks a lot. That's pretty much it. And she had just started dating someone who was like a CEO at her cousin's company, and she was living with her cousin, and this guy was a CEO, and like, aside from that, I don't know, and her daughter, like, I don't know anything about her. But I had mentioned that I had considered it, and one guy had offered me $500. That was the scam where the guy like immediately asked for credit card information and stuff. And I didn't tell her that I decided that it wasn't for me, and that's just not the kind of person that I am. There's nothing against people that choose that lifestyle, like, not at all. That's just not me, and I made a mistake, and I was terrified of the homelessness and the prospect of moving into this house. So Kareem, Shakim's brother, he promised me work. He told me he would give me work. He actually, first off, he told me he could do $1,000. Then he raised it to $1,300 after he found out I was spending $500 a month on medication. Now I don't have the $1,000 a month, but I have the $1,300 in my phone, I believe. But he did initially tell me he could do 1,000, and then he raised it to $1,300 after I texted him that I was giving him my budget, because I wanted to know what the utilities were, and I wanted to know all this to try and figure out my budget, and I was just like, okay, well, I guess I'll make some adjustments because I really need a place to live. And he took less than required for the security deposit, or less than he wanted for the security deposit. The first few months were less. He told me he had another person interested, and I actually kept telling him, like, take the other person. No, it's yours. Take the other it's yours. He told me it was finished. He didn't. He made this. I saw this house as a work site. I couldn't work on it to pour epoxy because it was too hot and there's no air conditioning. He made the house worth less than when I saw it. I did not do a walkthrough. I signed the lease sight unseen. I made the assumption that he was flipping this house like the one that I had worked on. He did not. There are still broken windows. There's leaking pipe. Habitability issues, which by law I have the right to withhold rent until he fixes them. But he lured me with work. When I moved in, the heat wasn't set up, and he immediately went on vacation. And then when he got back, and I asked him I started sending him photos of stuff that was broken, and he criticized me for only messaging him stuff about the house. And he actually, a lot of the stuff he didn't even fix. He immediately went on vacation, And when I asked him about fixing the heat and stuff when he got home from vacation, his response was, Shaquem didn't keep you warm? Like, no, how many times, I didn't say this exactly, but I remember thinking to myself, how many times do I have to tell you I'm not dating your brother? But I just responded with, no, LOL. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, when I write LOL, I mean an awkward When I'm like actually laughing, I will write out ha ha. No, for me, it's just like I don't think I've ever explained that to anyone that I've texted LOL to, but that's what my LOLs mean. I'm not actually like happy laughing. I'm very awkward and uncomfortable, and that is why I'm going I had, from the moment I moved into this house, there were people stalking me. There was a boy, I remember walking down the street, and this boy, he looked at me, and he did this. And then he and his friend walked past me, and then one of them yelled, "Good dick over here." A couple days later, there was like a group of guys that made a comment implying that I had a boyfriend. I didn't. I don't know. It was very strange. There were people outside of my house. You see the new girl? Yeah, she's right there. She's got a little dog. They're right there. Right there. I would go outside. I'd have like, I had been stress smoking at the time. There was someone who walked past and saw what I was doing and said into their phone, a cigarette. I mentioned that to someone at some point, and their reaction was basically like, oh, being monitored, like, that's normal. In what fucking reality? Anyway, let me get back to the friend that, I got very distracted, and I'm sorry. The friend who, basically, she, I told her, I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. That was the 1st of the 15th. And she, like, the 1st came around, and she started flipping out. She's like, you said you would be, like, before the 1st. You leaving? And I just, like, dude, you need a few more. You said the 1st. Well, we can give you another week. I'm just like, it was the 1st or the 15th that you agreed to. The 15th, if you couldn't do the 15th, then you would have sort of just said, okay, we can do the 1st, but she didn't. She just said, okay. And there was another friend who had promised me, she was like, yeah, I can give you a room. I had someone let me stay with them for a little while many years ago when I was going through a rough patch. I could do that for you. She gave away it wasn't my room. It was her house that she just bought. But the room that she promised me, she gave it away. While I was going through this situation, while I was going through homelessness, she gave away the room. Now, she also was kind of, at one point, possibly jealous about the guy that I was seeing. I don't know. But she did. We went to a store so she could buy a new vibrator at one point in 2018 and pointed to a wall of dildos and asked me which one his dick was. And then she went to prom with a guy that I dated for 4 years. And then she made comments about in 2019, about remembering what his dick felt like pressed against her leg at prom, which happened in 2004. Or 2005. Their prom was 2005. So, no, it might have been, it was 2004. It was 2004. Yeah, it was 2004. Anyway, 15 years. And you're telling me that? Why? So, I kept telling Kareem, I'm like, dude, I need to know, because I had just enough money to stay at an extended stay hotel for 1 month and, like, you know, get a car, like a rental. I was going to rent a car and do lifts, which is what I ultimately did. But, honk when I said that. So, he just, like, kept delaying it. So I was spending more money than I was making because my cat was staying with my ex-husband. Because it was the safest place for my cat. My dog was with me. I had to put her in doggy daycare because it wasn't safe for her to leave her at the motel, and then I briefly stayed at a former friend's mother's house. It wasn't safe for her to stay there either because her mom kept blaming the other dog peeing in the house on my dog. And my poor dog got kennel cough while she was I had to spend all this money on doggy daycare. So by staying with my friend's mom, not helpful, because the money that I could have spent, at the hotel, like, I was spending on the rental car because I didn't have my own car at that point. Like, I was spending a good $300 to $400 a week more than I was making. So I was dipping into my reserve, and all of this, like, oh yeah, the house is yours. The guy will contact you today. Week. Do you know how much, like, I am going, like, I need to know now whether or not I can, no, a week. Pushing me to the point where I had no other option. I had no other option but to take the house. And he lured me with work. And then when I got in here, it was almost like shaming me. Like, there were spider nests and stuff in the basement. Well, how do you know what those are? Because I owned a house. Because they're spider nests. How do you not know what massive webs filled with spider, like, how do you not know what they are? When we walked through this house as a work site, the outside was covered with spider webs and spiders. How do you not know that that's what that is? There were things like, he had me buy my own dryer vent duct. The dryer was an issue with, the dryer was broken, and it kept blowing the fuse in the basement because it was too old, and it was drawing too much electricity. And the breaker was the electric in this house is all sorts of screwed up. And like, at one point he had asked me to fix the pushmatic breaker in the basement, and I was just like, I can't. I sent him a YouTube video. I'm like, I can't do this. Like, he expected me to do, it was almost like he expected me to move in here and renovate the house for him. And then he didn't want to fix anything. He didn't start fixing things. I ended up with a roommate. She moved in December. And he didn't want to start fixing things until she moved in because she was moving in. Now, she was my subletter. But for some reason, he seemed to work out a deal with her. I don't know what exactly, but there was a lot of stuff that was going on. Now, again, so my family had a lawsuit against the FAA as part of the plane crash stuff. He told me he was a general contractor. I did not know anything else about him. After I moved in here, he told me he worked with the FAA. First, he tells me he's former paratrooper. Then he told me he worked for the FAA. Then he told me he worked for a government contractor for the FAA. Then he told me he wasn't affiliated with the FAA at all. There was mold in here. He told me it was dust. The day that he took me through this house, he took me through another one. He told me he was a certified mold removal specialist, and detailed this entire way to remove the mold that was in the house that we saw, that I actually was having an allergic reaction to and had to leave because there was so much mold. I moved into this house. He's like, it's dust, it's not mold. I asked him, who's gonna pay for the testing? I scraped off a sample without telling him and sent it away for testing. It came back as an uncommon form of penicillin. Anyway, about 2 months after moving into this house, so a month after moving into this house, his brother raped me. And I say that it was coercion, but it was rape. I did not have plans on having sex with him. I had actually put out into the universe the night before that I wanted to be with the man that I had fallen in love with, which was the guy I'd, seen for on and off for 2 years, and but it wasn't healthy, and I was trying to focus on myself, but I missed him, and I put that out into the universe. And the next day I get a text, and he's just like, basically flat out like, I don't want to have sex with this other person. Do you want to have sex? And it triggered me, and I'm just kind of like, okay. And then when he got here, I told him, I was like, no, I want to remain celibate, because I pretty much told myself I'm not letting people treat me like shit anymore. If I want to be in a committed relationship, either it be a final marriage or like a long-term permanent partner sort of thing, but not it bothered me that dating has just become mindless fucking, basically. And that was one of the problems that I had when I first, got divorced, was how do people as adults make friends? Do they do it dating? Because dating now is just like, okay, next please. Like, that was what I walked into, and I can't do this. I went out with one person I met while driving for Lyft. Big mistake. And then 3 people I met on Tinder. One of them was nice that I, would probably have a friendship with, if I were to meet again. One of them was polite, but not someone I would ever really want to see. And then the other one I don't want anything to do with. And then one person on Bumble, and that's the guy that I had fallen in love with. Now, I'm sorry, there were 4 people on Shaquem was the 4th person on Tinder, but I didn't ever intend on actually meeting him. Now, there had been an individual in my life who I thought was a friend who actually kept telling me she wanted me to date Shaquem. She didn't want me dating this other person. And I had put way too much faith in her being someone to support me. She was not a wise choice for me to have on my support team. Not necessarily because she's a bad person, but just because what she was going through and has dealt with in her life might have blinded her to other people's realities. And I think I have a very difficult time communicating, and I think she made some assumptions based off of certain things because I didn't communicate it properly. But eventually I kind of cut all communications with her because she started acting very strangely. Like, it sounded like she called me and just kept me on the phone and didn't say anything. And then apparently, I actually had a mutual acquaintance of ours reach out to her to make sure she was okay, and she's like, yeah, she's fine. But apparently she, stopped talking to people and then came back married at one point, and it concerned a lot of people. So she did have a baby eventually, so I don't know what was going on there, but I bring her up because she kept insisting that I date this guy. She also had introduced me to a couple of YouTube astrologers. I was not into astrology. I did tarot, since I was 14, but I was not into astrology. She had introduced me to some people, and again, there's some stuff I can't talk about, and this video is already getting to be an hour and a half. So I'm going to stop. But essentially, not only would I have not moved in here had I did a walkthrough, had I known that this guy worked for the FAA or would say I don't know the story there, I would not have moved in. I would have gone to an extended stay hotel. I ended up quitting my job because it's a court reporting agency. There is a potential very serious issue, and I reached out to Marty G. Cummings because of the issue, and Marty blocked me. I don't know if Marty thinks that this is fake. This is not fake. So basically, after I moved in here, I told my landlord I felt like I was going crazy. But I'm looking back, there are a few things that could have happened. It mainly was that my nose is very itchy. I was on, I'm a medical cannabis patient. I did not smoke pot in school. I didn't do drugs. I had an 8 o'clock curfew. I didn't really have friends that invited me out because everyone saw me as their mother. I was not that child. So, people had never seen me high before. And, the friend whose wedding I didn't go to, she started freaking out at me, and I was just like, dude, please trust me. She's like, I don't trust you. I don't know what happened, but she apparently reached out to my parents, who she's never met before and does not know my childhood because we were not friends as kids, and told them she was concerned about me for reasons that I don't know. Apparently at one point she had someone else reach out to me at one point claiming that they were afraid I would hurt myself. I've never been someone who's self-harming. I had a stroke, potentially a stroke. And my mother is a narcissist and is also a hoarder of people on Facebook. She also, so for the majority of my childhood, I just basically had to put up with her telling everybody that I had all of these issues and was this problem child, and she joined NAMI because she wanted attention, essentially. She, instead of going to see a therapist and discussing it with a therapist, she went to a group of strangers to complain about me. At one point, they wanted to do a documentary about me being the first person to, what was it? It wasn't like that I had, grown out of bipolar. And it's just like, no. I was not, I did not have bipolar. You guys, they misdiagnosed me, and I've had quite a bit of therapy, and gone over this with therapists. I was misdiagnosed. There were a lot of reasons for the misdiagnosis, but I'm not going to get into them right now. But I was misdiagnosed. And I mentioned this in the video. And that might have pissed some people off, or they just didn't believe me because of my mom. But I was misdiagnosed. So I started... There were some things that happened that I cannot get into, and I cannot get into because I need an attorney in order to get into them. But some things happened that shouldn't have happened, and I was living in so much fear of... My roommate did some really fucking weird things. Like on Valentine's Day, she stole my key and put it on her keychain. She came to the house. She said I gave her 2 keys. She knocked on the door, told me she lost her key, asked for mine. I gave her my key. She closed the door. I locked it. I started to walk away. She unlocked the door and she walked in, as did her boyfriend. I think it was 4. I have the text message. It might have been around 4 o'clock in the morning. I was trying to go to work. I think I woke up at like 2 when I wanted to go to work. She had locked her door. Was asleep. I had to, I tried calling her. I knocked on the door. Eventually, both her and her boyfriend came to the door. She had to take my key off of her keychain. This is like, she put my key on her keychain, despite her having 2 copies and just claiming she left them at the other house. Like, why? I wouldn't have been able to come home. I wasn't able, like, so you don't want me to go to work? I can't, like, I don't understand this. Now, she gave me the key, and it was just very strange. Now, at some point, my dad ended up... I don't know what was going on. My dad came to visit me. He lives in New Mexico. My dad came to visit me for 3 weeks and prevented me from working for 3 weeks. I had quit my other job right before COVID because of the fact that they were potentially having me commit crimes, and that there were other illegal activities and things going on that were quite questionable. So I left. It was not a large company where the whistleblower laws could protect me. I actually might have been targeted by them because of the guy that I met on Bumble. I'm not going to go into detail about that right now. But one of the reasons I mentioned the sugar baby thing was because one of the court reporters we had a problem with, that was one of the reasons I actually tried to, or I did attempt to report them to the Superior Court of New Jersey. My former bosses were trying to say that she wasn't getting her work done because she had a sugar daddy. Anyway, so my dad came and tried to, basically prevented me from working for 3 weeks, and I was only able to work enough to pay for my rental car, and the Express Drive program in New Jersey was ending. I was going to have to switch to Philadelphia, but I had 2 or 3 weeks left. And for some reason, out of nowhere, my mom started reaching out to me. I didn't reach out to her. I told her, do not contact me again. And it just, not caring. Reaching out to me, she's like, let me know when I can take you to drop off your car. I can do it tomorrow. And she's like, I still have 3 weeks. Why are you guys trying to prevent me from making an income? I need to pay my bills. Where are your heads? What is going on? It's nice that you're retired. I am not. I am not retired. I am not you. I need to work. Why are you trying to take my car from me so that I can't work? What is going on? I had started posting, there were some things going on, and I started posting weird stuff on Instagram, but I started posting stuff on Instagram because my phone was hacked. My mom's computer had actually been hacked in 2010. They traced it back to China. She did file a report. My phone had been hacked. 2 of my contacts had been changed, my former employer and the guy that I met on Bumble. There was a car horn that honked outside when I said that. Give me 1 second. I need something to drink. basically, the attacks that I was getting, I started getting people basically telling me to stop posting. It's just like I started removing people. Now, I started posting on Instagram weird stuff, what seemed to be weird stuff, because my phone had been hacked. And date and timestamps are really important. Now, my brother is former cybersecurity for the U.S. Air Force, as well as he previously worked for NSA. He worked for a company called Armor, and he now works for another cybersecurity firm that I think he's an owner of. People don't know this. People, like the people who had been in my life, the people who were supposedly my friends, the majority of them, I had met through exes. They were not my friends. They were just people that I had met in passing, and that ended up, staying on my social media. Excuse me. They were unaware of the estate issues. They're unaware of the fact that I was a witness in a crime the FBI decided not to prosecute. They were unaware of my brother and what his job was. They were unaware of what I was doing at that point in time. They were unaware of my medical issues. They were unaware of the fact that I potentially had a stroke. They were unaware of the fact that I had 2 divorces with no alimony. They were unaware. Now, my first husband, actually, his family used to make fun of me for going bankrupt. His family has no clue that I paid for everything, and that all that their son did was basically masturbate and stalk teenagers on MySpace all day. I'm not joking. One of the many reasons we got divorced was because he would just complain that he wasn't having sex with other people, and he wouldn't even want to touch me because he would rather masturbate and then look at teenagers on MySpace. I don't know if he did them at the same time, because he might have, and that's actually one of the things is I've tried to hand in an old laptop to the FBI. Because it's actually, I didn't know I had it. It should have been handed in because it should have been part of the estate, but my mom gave it. My mom took it from the estate before anything happened, before they even started investigating. But he might have watched child porn on it. It was in Canada. I tried to hand it to the FBI. Apparently, everything broke because of COVID. Anyway, so I started posting stuff on Instagram. Okay, that was 1:37 and okay. So this is pineapple and mango juice. I started posting things on Instagram that seem nonsensical, but there were things going on that were entirely out of my control. And I am so thankful that a lot of what I posted about has either since been proven or theorized or discussed by the other individuals, not just me. There was actually at one point a Vice reporter looking at my Instagram. Like, there were a lot of weird things going on. London on the Track was looking at my Instagram. Like, I get that I knew, I had no celebrities and had worked with them. Weird stuff was going on, and my account's not verified, and I had since removed every single follower and unfollowed every single person, and I did so, hi Stormy, for their own safety. And I have good reason to, because I have more than one stalker. More than one. I had actually recently posted a photo on Instagram and tagged a friend, and one of my stalkers actually reached out to her directly because he saw that she was tagged and he wanted to make sure she was okay. There are a lot of things that are going on. So basically, I'm not getting into the details, but it was almost like my landlord was intentionally not. He refuses to answer why he didn't give me work after promising me work and luring me here with work. And I had told him that I needed work, and it was just like nothing, and just attacking me, attacking me, threatening me, sending people to the house, randomly. I couldn't leave. People were being calling the cops because I was posting on Instagram. I kept removing people and blocking them because I should have made it private, but I didn't want to, just in case I died. I wanted there to. That is how fucking terrified I am, and people don't understand this. My former employers that I have whistleblower case, the manager is best friends with all the cops. How am I? And my landlord, after I moved in November, it's a really fucking weird thing happened, and he basically held me hostage in the car for a period of time when we were outside of Home Depot, and he said some weird stuff about the cops when we got back to the house that basically implied he might know my former employers. And it's just like, I was terrified. How, what, who do you, how? When the cops would come here, I asked if I could file reports against my stalkers and stuff, and they're like, no, we can't help you. I tried to explain to one of the police officers that it was a labor trafficking situation, and he started telling me that I was just mad, that I wasn't, that I was just angry that he wasn't giving me work. I'm like, no, that's not it. And that it wasn't trafficking because it wasn't sex trafficking. I'm like, first off, his brother raped me. They were trying to get me to strip. He thought I was going to do webcam work. He didn't, like, I don't know whether it was intentional or not, but his brother, when he came here, he, like, immediately triggered a PTSD episode with me, because I have this very abusive ex who, situation, I'm not going to bring up here, but I'm not going to bring it, but when I used to, like, walk down the stairs, he would smack my ass as hard as possible, trying to make me fall down the stairs. But Shaquem came over the night that he raped me. Like, I could not function because I was in so much fear from the people that were stalking me and saying things outside my house. And then we go outside, I take the dog out, and he's like, let me come with you. I just wanted to, like, I was going to ask him to leave because it was freaking me out. I felt this pressure from him being here. I just wanted, like, space to breathe. He didn't even let me. He followed me outside, and then I walk back inside, and he touches my butt. I'm like, from behind, as I'm walking up, like, immediately, I'm just like, I couldn't. There's a Chinese restaurant right next door, where we got dinner. We called it in. I couldn't even walk next door. I'm just shaking. I had told him I wanted to stay celibate. My dog, my wonderful, amazing Ruby, she physically placed herself between... Oh, Stormy just jumped down to stay next to her. She put herself between the two of us and physically separated us. And I'm like, listen, I want to remain celibate. Even Ruby doesn't want us to have sex right now. And what does he do? He starts petting her and distracting her and then moves on to me. I'm sorry, Sam. I know this is almost 2 hours and you're already... So basically, I've tried, for 2 years, I've filed multiple reports with the FBI. I've sent hundreds of emails. I've reached out to news stations. I've reached out to certain people. What happened I don't know, so I had, like, been getting weird messages, like, one message from this kid that used to go to church with me when I was growing up, who my mom didn't like because he decided not to go through confirmation. He had a crush on me growing up. It made me uncomfortable. Like, we would sit in church together, but it made me uncomfortable that he had a crush on me. He sent me this message. He's just like, oh, I remember all the stuff you went through as a child, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no, you have no one. I could barely function. And it was only while I was on my medical cannabis that stuff was weird. And it was only communication through text. Not a single person called me or saw me in person. If people were to have seen me and communicated with me in person like this, entirely different. Entirely different. I kept telling my dad, like, I need a lawyer. I had multiple medical malpractice lawsuits. And now my former employer, they were a workers' compensation court reporting firm. They did mostly workers' comp and medical malpractice. They know all the doctors. I had a really weird thing happen right before a whole bunch of weird stuff started going on, and I told the landlord I felt like I was going crazy. And basically, like, so I had someone over, and they're just like, anyway, just weird stuff. Like, the house is absolutely haunted. It is haunted. There was gum in the trash can that came out of nowhere. Doors closed. Lights turn on and off all the time. Doors open and close all the time. Like, it sounds like there was footsteps. There have been voices. I honestly think the pipe leak is a ghost leak because there seems to be no damage, and we don't know where it comes from, and it's not all the time. Also, one of the things I kept posting, excuse me, and there are things that I can't disclose right now, but one of the things I kept posting was the phrase, stir of echoes, orange juice. Now, I don't know if you've seen the movie Stir of Echoes, or if you know what it's about. I'm not going to ruin it for you. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure you have. But if you haven't seen it, just look at the synopsis. But basically, there is a scene where Kevin Bacon is looking for a buried body. And he's digging, and he doesn't know where it is at this point, but he's looking for a body. And there's just this scene where he's covered in dirt, and he's in the kitchen, and he's just chugging orange juice. And when he opens the refrigerator, the entire refrigerator is filled with Tropicana. Now, that has been my entire life. Not a full fridge of Tropicana, but like a half a container a night. I would wake up in the middle of the night as a child and chug orange juice. If there was no orange juice, it was Yoo-Hoo or Coca-Cola, but it was primarily orange juice. When I was in this house, I was chugging orange juice. Which is this pineapple juice lately, too. I don't know if there is a spiritual reason for why they put the orange juice. I don't know if it was just something the art department decided to do, if it was written to the script, but no, they decided that, sorry, I don't know why, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted, Sam, I'm sorry. I've been trying for 2 years to get out of this. I've tried to report. So my mom also, being involved with the church, she knows a lot of people in the community. I don't know how many people she's lied to or convinced opposite things. Also, what happened to me and the stuff, the way I acted has never, ever, 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 ever happened to me before. Not even once. And while it was happening, I did see my therapist. I kept telling my dad, I'm like, I need a lawyer. He's like, no, you need a therapist. I'm like, no, I need a fucking lawyer. I do not need a therapist. I can't help you with that. Go see a therapist. No, help me do a Google search. I need an attorney. And it was basically like people were getting pissed at the fact that I was posting photos of myself crying, trying to get out of a human trafficking situation. People were getting pissed because I was posting photos of my apartment. I'm sorry, I've never lived I've either been married or lived with my mom after escaping a marriage. And my ex has been the one that supplied all the furniture. I'm sorry that I just have piles of shit. I can't afford furniture right now. I'm sorry that I'm poor. I'm sorry that, I might have had a stroke, and when I cry, I'm an ugly crier. I was going through a lot of grief. I kept it's almost like people don't understand sometimes it's not safe to call the police. I tried multiple times to call the police, and they just don't believe me. And I don't know, is it because I'm new to the area? I don't know. Now, my landlord's brother was well aware of the stuff that was going on with the television show. Excuse me. Because I had told him about it when it happened. So, there were just a lot of different things going on at once. A lot. In that time period, so it's 1 minute and 48 seconds. Almost exactly. I'm sorry, an hour and 48 minutes with 1 second. See, this is what happened. So, we did a radioactive iodine scan last year because my cancer likely came back during this, and my ex-husband actually finalized the divorce during the situation, despite my begging him not to, because it's trafficking, and basically his friend stalking me, and not his friend, the woman he might have been having an affair with. And this is why I need to be very honest about the fact that I did use the wrong word. When I texted my mom, I meant demisexual. I wasn't, 100. I'm still learning terminology. I'm still trying to reintroduce myself into society. I would try to socialize while I was married to him, and it was just like he didn't want me to be around people. He would get mad at me for being around people like that. And I'm saying this because, he might have had an affair with this woman, and he basically started claiming that, well, you said you needed lots of sex, so I want you to have sex with her. Like, no. I didn't tell you I needed lots of sex. At least not, what I said was, I did tell him that I needed lots of sex, but what I had said was, I said that prior to him Like, we had not ever had that conversation before, so it wasn't something that he knew. And it's not, I'm not, what I had meant, as Emmy said, like, I need the intimacy, and that was what I had meant, was I needed intimacy. And that's not something we'd ever even had. I needed the emotional intimacy and the physical, that is what I had meant, and I didn't know how to express it because communication didn't exist in his mind. So, but yeah, that's why I have to be very, very honest, because he tried to play off his affair by saying he wanted me to sleep with her, and it's just like, why do you think I would even do that? I mean, that was my mom's religion, though, that women have no rights and have to do whatever their husbands say, regardless of whether or not they're comfortable. So in her religious belief, I should have. But in the same breath, she is quite hateful towards people who are not straight. So I don't even know how that works for her religion. And that was one of the things that I told her, was that because of some things she had said in the past, it's not okay. Anyway, my mom had, she might have reached out to my former employers, not knowing or understanding that there were things going on. Because she asked me if I was still working there, and then when I quit, my employer brought me back in the office, and I was, as a concerned mother, which is exactly something my mom would say, and it's like, no, you're my employer. It is entirely inappropriate for you to say as a concerned mother. Entirely inappropriate, especially since I'm only like 14 years younger than you. There actually might have been discrimination against me because I'm not a mother. My kids, they might have 4 legs. These are my children. And the fucking office manager nonstop talks about how much she hates kids, treats her daughter like shit when she calls her in the middle of the day, demands to talk to her dog instead. Like, don't discriminate me because I don't have a human child. I'm sorry, I don't mean to yell at you. But yeah, so I tried to work with Project Protect, Covenant House, Catholic Charities to get out of the situation. Problem is, a lot of the shelters are full. A lot of the shelters don't take animals. I had to have a steady income. I couldn't, for a year, I could barely leave the house. I could barely leave the house. I had to turn in, like, my car. I mean, there was stuff going on with Lyft that I was just like, I can't do this. And, like, my brain, like, I was still putting pieces together and figuring out how to, like, recover from what had happened. And, but it's like, the state almost doesn't believe me. I don't know why. It seems like it's because I have reported it to the FBI so many times and nothing's happened. But it's just like, no, I don't think you understand. There's actually a possibility they might not do anything because they decided not to prosecute my uncle regarding something, and like, no, I'm very concerned. Meanwhile, like, people started, all I could say, like, I could feel a lot of people, like, projecting on me, thinking I wasn't entirely, like, what I felt was projections of me from when I was, like, 3 and 4 years old, and had a very hard time communicating, and my family just would accuse me of being a liar and call me Pinocchio all the time. That I had flashbacks to that, and then I had, like, just, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. I had started to talk to another former friend of mine about what was going on, and I tried to start talking to her about some stuff, and all of a sudden she just, like, all I could say was, you need an attorney, because there were other things going on, and I could only put, and again, this could have to do with the stroke, it could do with the mold. When my mom was pregnant with me, she had toxoplasmosis. Stormy, who gets he's on special food. He had a massive, anal gland infection. There was pus and fluid for like 3 weeks. He was on medication. Oh my god. But anyway, I don't know if mold, if it's stress, if it was the realization that this had been like a luring trafficking situation. Like it's almost like he was intentionally trying to force me to be poor, if that makes sense. Like I couldn't work. He promised me work, but he's not giving me work. I couldn't leave the house to work. Like I was trying to launch my tarot business online, and I said people were starting to attack me for doing tarot. Other stuff started to happen eventually. I can't disclose that on video. That's a very different conversation. I need an attorney. But, like, people would just start attacking. Like, I couldn't find an attorney. I could only focus on certain. And when I was a kid, and this is why I said I regressed to, like, 4. When I was a kid, I used to call people out on their bullshit all the time and tell them what they were doing is legal because it was. But basically, as a child, I was just, like, told. Because I grew up in a family of lawyers, and I was basically punished for thinking like a lawyer. And then I had a very hard time communicating. I did have issues with lying as a child, but it wasn't like the same way adults lie. It was more of a communication thing, and not. I'm working with Volunteers of America. I may be on the high end autism spectrum. I'm not 100% certain. I don't know. I just when I'm reflecting on my life, everything that kind of falls in. I've been through a lot of therapy, but we haven't looked at it from, because I didn't know about my childhood neurological issues until 2007, end of 2016, beginning of 2017, when I spent a week in the cardiac care unit for the muscle spasm issue. Because my heart was going up to like 150 to 170 beats per minute when this stuff was going on, and that's why like they really missed out when I went to the emergency room and they didn't take me or put me on a stretcher. Like there was no heart rate check, none of that, and I couldn't communicate it myself. And my mom she was not her. She seemed like she was like glazed over. She just thought if we stood there by the front door that they would take us immediately. And it's like, you didn't tell them that I'm not an epileptic, so they think this is normal. Like, but I was moving, I have video, like I could not talk. And the first 5 minutes was much milder, so I'm able to talk in the first 5 minutes, but after that I could barely speak. But I bring that up because my mom essentially like claimed her stalking. She was calling the cops because she was concerned about my health. No, she wasn't. It was entirely control. And it got to the point like she had sent people. She would drive past the house. She would send other people to the house. I had to file a restraining order against her. Like so much stuff. There's so much. So basically, it's been 2 years. I've been trying to get out of this. It morphed into an eviction Thankfully, I'm still here because I'm not giving up these are my kids. With Stormy's health issues, the chances of him being adopted are very slim, and I'm not doing that to my cat. Like, that is my firstborn child. My first cat ever, her name was Crouton. She didn't have a meow, she had a meh. She lived in, hold on, I have her photo right here. So this is Crouton. Exactly. This is Crouton. Crouton was a Maine Coon cat. Crouton did not leave my side during my cancer treatment. I miss her so much. She had, hi Stormy. I know, I wouldn't have you if she had, but you know I miss her, Stormy. Look, hi Ruby. I had started dating that guy who would steal my car and stuff. And I was just, I dated him because I tried to escape. My mom had just started dating her now husband, and it was not healthy. It was not healthy, and I couldn't be around him. And so I needed to be out of the house, and that it got bad. But the litter box was clean, the food was full, I thought she was taking care of her. My cat just wasn't eating or drinking. I didn't know. She had developed a tumor about the size of a softball that started warping her rib cage. But this is how, like, it's either my mother or her husband is pure evil, and I know this because, and I didn't know. If I had known, I would have been at that vet's office every single night. She spent a week on IV fluids. They were trying to get her to eat. She lost so much weight. I remember the night that I came home, and I recognized that she was sick and she hadn't been eating, and that's why there was no, like, she hadn't been eating and drinking, and that's why the litter box was clean. And I remember, like, trying to finger drop power. Like, I don't remember if it was Powerade or Gatorade, but electrolyte sports drink, so that she would get better. And they had her on IV fluids, and I remember being there before they euthanized her, and just snuggling with her, and she was sitting in the crate, and she was definitely getting there, and just snuggling with her. And the moment my mom and her husband walked into the room, all of a sudden my crouton just started to like choking and hissing and sputtering and making all sorts of weird noises and shaking in ways I'd never seen her before. And it was just like, she does not want to have those people near her. She was literally just saying, okay, I need to die before they come near me. Like, no. I'm sorry. Every day, there is so much. I have given up so much. Just don't eat that. That's cat poop. You don't go into the cat box and eat poop. So basically, like, people don't believe that I've been in a trafficking situation, and I don't think it was recognized as that, and it was. But like they think I'm lying. My mom has I don't understand what's going on. There were other things that were going on that, again, I can't disclose, and I don't know if that had an impact on it. But I have a feeling my first husband did something really bad. And while I was in this house, I basically admit to pretty much every single thing I've done in my entire life, and including the fact that when I was 9 years old, I was groomed by a 17-year-old who, well, over the course of the duration that we knew each other, he had, groomed me. He was a Nazi. I ended up dating him when I was 20. I didn't know that he was a Nazi until after he forced me to move in with him. But I had told this to my mom, basically that I recognized her racism because of that with my ex. And her response, hold on, let me read you this exchange, okay? Hold on. So I don't know what's going on with my, that's why, because it's connected to Wi-Fi. Hold on, I'm sorry. That might be why. I don't know I guess maybe I had an update or something going on. Basically, her response, she said today, I think I erased the message. Here we go. So the reason I recognized the racism, this was February 19th, 2020. She would not stop. She was harassing me. She was harassing me nonstop, and I actually told her to stop and that I was calling the police, and then she ended up calling the police on me because I was calling the police on her. They didn't even go to her. They came here, and she did it because she wanted them to come into the house. No, you're harassing me. I told you stop. I'm an adult. No, just because you birthed me, you don't own me. Anyways, the reason I recognize the racism with you and your husband is because Eric was a Nazi. I never told you this before. He also rapes me repeatedly. He groomed me from childhood. He threatened to leave me for Soliana or Ashley once they turned 18, and he had met them when they were 5. I'm not talking about this anymore, but you really do need to do work on figuring out your internalized racism. I've been working on mine, and it's a never-ending process because of how the world is, but it will change. Please do not contact me. This was never about whether or not I love you, because that's what she claimed that it was because I didn't love her. I'm like, no, this is not about you and me. This is not about you and me, Mom. But as a narcissist, everything is about her. Everything's about her. Her response, this is not my daughter Jennifer speaking to me, but some deep voice that is not her own. I discount anything that is not from my daughter. I know for a fact this is not Jennifer. Fear is a liar and does not speak his truth. When my daughter Jennifer wants to see me or speak to me, she is welcome. This is the wife of a man who came home from Auschwitz and said to me, if you ever get the chance to go to Auschwitz, you should really check it out. You would love the art. I'm going to stop. This has already been over 2 minutes. And it's been a lot. You are one of the first people who's heard this from my mouth. I have messaged Roy Wood Jr. I know he's read it. I don't know if anything's going on. I know there are certain laws and stuff that apply to journalists. I'm not going to bother Roy. I'm going to keep, telling him things, but I'm not going to bother Roy. Roy and I met actually prior to my meeting. So Roy's kind of known for somehow breaking up couples. He doesn't try, they just break up after seeing him, and it's happened on multiple times. The guy that I met on Bumble and I kind of stopped, things kind of fizzled out, not fizzled out, but things kind of ended. I had the stroke several months after I saw Roy, but things got weird after I showed the guy from Bumble a photo of me and Roy. I don't know how to explain it. I'm not blaming Roy. It's not his fault the person I went with turned the flash on when they took the photo. That is not his fault. It fucked us both up. And I have been telling, now he's not officially introduced himself to me. Well, he might have, but a potential burner account I'm not going to count that because it could also be a fake. But basically, one of the people that I have been messaging is Meek Mel. He has not directly acknowledged me, and I just said his name. Let me see if he has not directly acknowledged me. However, he has not directly messaged me. However, there's a lot of I know he's I know. There again, stuff I cannot disclose. That's what led to that. However, I know he knows, and basically, we met, and I had told him, I made a joke that he had met me on Terror Train. I don't know if you're familiar with the band Demons and Wizards. It's a mix between, the bands Blind Guardian and Iced Earth formed Demons and Wizards together, and I told him he met me because I met him on either him or someone who presented themselves. He didn't say he was him. He didn't say who he was at all. But the conversation and physical, I'm not. It was a smile. Anyway, it was a smile that I've been isolated for a long time and not up with my celebrity culture. And I don't really watch television or movies much anymore, and so like I listen to all kinds of music, but not really much radio. So I wasn't familiar with his work, really. So I didn't know who he was. He was just this, nice person I was talking to, about what they were doing after they got off. Got off parole. Anyway, he was telling me he was going to travel the world and all this stuff, and I was like, congratulations. So I had told him he met me on Terror Train, and his response was Love Train. Also, at one point, anyway, I'm not getting into that. Hi. Oh no. But yeah, so him, his cousin, and like 2 other people. I've kind of been filling in just because I really am and have been in fear of my life. Ow. There are a lot of reasons for that. Hey. Especially since the ex that I mentioned who groomed me, I actually I recorded a video. Now my dad, so that guy actually might have dated one of the children that he met at age 4 or 5, or at least slept with them. I don't know, because basically that was when my dad decided to come and visit me. Was after I sent that to my mom, because it would have been his best friend's daughter or stepdaughter, because that's what happened. So hi. But again, it's like they've regressed into thinking, do not eat the cat poop. I do not want to be distracted from filming this. Do not eat that. And again, like when I was a child, there had actually been an incident with someone. Again, we met this guy through church function, and then my dad's best friend he met at church, and everything had to do with church. And at the church around the same time growing up, like I guess I would have been like 15 or 17 years old. Bless you. Please don't. There had actually been like a child pornography case with one of the youth pastors at our church growing up, who was very good friends with my brother, and like my mom, she sided with the guy, and like she didn't want to talk about it because it would bring shame to the family. It's just like, what about the children? What about the children whose photos he was like? I don't. Okay, Mom. What about your son? Now, I don't know. There was nothing disclosed to me regarding my brother, and I'm not going to make any accusations, but it's still like, no. And you're working with children's ministry now and using books from the 80s that are praising conquerors. Like, no. Sorry, she's distracting me. I'm all over the place right now. But no, I made a YouTube video to report him, and then in case there were any hate crimes that haven't been reported, and I showed his photo, and so I don't know, like I had posted a lot of stuff. Stop. Out of fear for my life, and come here. All right, hold on. All right, here we go. I give her. I have a laser pointer. There we go. So yeah. Sorry, this is already over 2 hours. But yeah, like I tried to report there was child porn taken of me. Well, nude photos taken of me when I was 16. I actually one of the reasons that I was in fear was I actually felt like someone recognized me from something I posted online, and I let my landlord know that right after I moved in, and then stuff started getting really weird. Because he's former military. I'm like, well, like. I don't trust, like, the police, like, here, they won't even take me seriously. they did let me. Well, I did attempt to file a report regarding my rape, but they just flat out lied to me and claimed they couldn't find it, despite me giving them the information right there. I recorded them. Don't put down the cat poop. Sorry, I don't want to. Leave it. Sorry, I'm not yelling at you, but you know you don't eat that. I don't know if I'm all over the place right now. Oh, there was another earthquake. I don't know if I mentioned it. I hear you. So the toxoplasmosis reactivation, viral reactivation is a thing. I don't know if that's what was going on. There were a lot of things that were going on with me that things got really weird when I felt like I was losing my mind. But thankfully, a lot of what I've posted has since been proven scientific fact, science theory, and other stuff. So, but I this one, telling people get a lawyer. I told this one person, I'm trying to get help, and she just starts telling me to go fuck myself. What do you mean? I'm no. Something's going on that I can't talk to you about, right? I didn't have the chance to explain it like that. But it was basically just to go, well, fuck you. And people, I had been painting one of my paintings. I was valued at between $20,000 to $100,000. And stop, Ruby. Stop. Thank you. I know. Thank you. Oh, such a good peppers. Hi, Stormy. I've destroyed all of my artwork. I had plans to use all of it for charitable purposes, to donate all of it. I'm trying to get all of my art back so I can destroy it. It'll never be another painting. I plan on not painting. I want to so bad. It's too dangerous to paint. I've asked people for my paintings back. All of a sudden, fuck you, and then just blocked. What's going on? Why can't I have my painting back? This is you didn't pay for it, and if you did, let me give you money. Fuck you! No. What's going on, guys? There are laws as far as this is concerned. Why do you want my painting? Anyway, so I stop. Thank you. You're all wound. No. Sorry, I try not to raise my voice with you. You know this, but you're all. I have to take her out. She's all wound up, so I'm gonna stop. I'm sorry. I'm emotionally exhausted right now from this. I know that I'm very, very, very lucky that this has been extraordinarily mild as far as trafficking and whatnot is concerned, but the what happened that I can't disclose, I will never be the same person as I was ever, and it's not a good thing. My license, my hair license, had actually because I couldn't work, because I couldn't leave the house for a period of time. I didn't have the money to renew my license in the state of New Jersey. I have to get it reinstated. I don't know what that'll cost. I've been spending $100 to $180 a day to rent a car to drive for Lyft and Uber and do grocery deliveries. But the issue that put me out on disability in 2015 with the partial paralysis, it is due in part to spinal compression. So sitting in a chair in a car all day, unable to move, most days I need to work 12 to 15 hours in order to make enough money to, save. Some days I can only work enough money to pay for the car. So I have a case in appeals right now regarding the subletter that I had, because she paid him directly after I told her that we had tenants' rights and the right to withhold rent because he wasn't fixing issues, habitability issues, and because of the trafficking. She worked out some sort of deal behind, she her lease was with me. Her lease, she shouldn't have been talking to him at all, and she would text him. Like, I don't understand what had happened, and I don't understand why he refused to fix things until she moved in, and then said it was because of her, like making me feel like less of a human, making me feel guilty for having him over here to fix issues that he should have taken care of prior to my moving in. Like, he almost, like, he thought that because it was sight unseen, he didn't have to take care of the habitability issues that he's legally required to. Like, by law, you have to take care of this. You can't just simply say, no, my brother, why didn't my brother keep, I have the movement issue that I have with the spasms, it's caused by the cold. That is what triggers it. Like, I have a feeling that my first husband might have been spreading rumors because, you know, he's friends with the person that I reached out to, and then the one who started attacking me said she didn't trust me, and then started reaching out to people she doesn't know and telling people they're afraid that I'm going to harm myself. I've never, ever, ever been a self-harm person. Like, why would you say that? Why would you reach out to my abusers? The people who threatened my life, why would you reach out to them? Because you don't... We're in our 30s. You don't go to the parents. What the fuck? So... Thank you. This is almost 2.5 hours. I'm so sorry. Hi, sweetheart. I'm gonna type up a little bit before I send this, so... But, I didn't mean to have this, run as long as it did. I'm being guided to let you know right now. So, prior to my license, expiring and not being able to renew it because I couldn't afford to, and everything was starting to reopen, I had actually done a curbside order at a local Ulta, and introduced myself, and they're like, yeah, if the company wants to hire you, they'll, even if we can't help you here, we'll keep your resume on file, blah, blah, blah. I called, and I called 2 weeks later, and I let them know, like, hi, I spoke with someone a few weeks ago regarding, if you were hiring or, keeping resumes, blah, 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 and said yes, and, gave me time, told me to come and talk to the manager. This is the situation I'm going through. I'm in a labor trafficking, what started as a labor trafficking situation. Do you happen to have any stylist safety net or something like that to help me out of the situation? And her response was simply, hold on, let me go talk to the manager, and then just came back, I'm sorry, we have a hiring freeze right now, thank you. Click. Like, I'm not asking, like, I will work 120-hour week, because this is not, like, I wasn't asking you for free. I'm trying to, like, what in the fuck? Like, not even we'll keep you on file, just, no. Entirely opposite of what I had been told 2 weeks prior. Like, anyway, hi. Like, I have filed, I've sent messages to the attorney generals of both states that are involved. Like, anyway, there's a lot. This is already almost 2.5 hours, and I'm gonna stop because I'm sorry. Thank you for your time. Sorry, my nose is very itchy right now. I'm gonna take Ruby out. I appreciate you for watching this. I'm gonna try and then write a little bit more than I was able to speak about. It's so complicated, and it's not your responsibility, and I just my ex, when I was literally begging him while in fear of leaving my house because I couldn't work, begging him, please don't take they just found a new lymph node. The cancer is like, he took away my insurance. All of my doctors are new, and they're now all at the hospital that I have a malpractice suit against, or potential malpractice suit against. And it's just like my TSH levels have been elevated for over a year at this point, despite my being back on Synthroid after the radioactive iodine test. My TSH levels should not be at 30. My TSH levels should be between 0 and 3. My tumor markers are elevated. This hospital might have given me a heart attack after my stroke, where they gave me Benadryl without telling me. I'm allergic to Benadryl. I'm not like officially allergic to Benadryl. I hallucinate on it, but it's not bad enough that I have it on the allergy chart, because if there's like an emergency where I'm having like a serious allergic reaction and there's like nothing else I can take, I need an antihistamine. But I haven't been able to take Benadryl since I was like 15 years old, because all of a sudden that it would just start causing hallucinations. And I've been on Synthroid since 2010. Synthroid has reactions with certain medications, like ephedrine medications. Like I can't take colds and flu medicines. I have to take the, Coricidin HBP, which is essentially extra strength Tylenol. Anyway, like I kept trying to explain to him. I'm like, I didn't ask for alimony because I just fled, but like I gave up an entire career. No, you didn't. I gave up an entire. No, you didn't. You were done with it. You were burnt out. Like, well, yeah, but I had my goal was become a platform educator and eventually become an educator. That had been my career goal after I moved home from Toronto and stopped working in film, was to become an educator and then work my like that. I had slowly been starting to get in that direction when he and I reconnected. How are you telling me I gave up a career? It was a 10-year career. I was on that you were in an indie. No one cared about that. What do you mean? Like trying to like that I just didn't exist. Like I want to make sure that regardless of what happens to me, the other people whose lives, like the doctor, the doctors that like other people have it, like, and then these are children. These are children, and if they can't learn to identify certain things, and if their parents just dismiss this as just like, oh, that's just candy, it's just, we cannot dismiss certain things just and let people get away with them. She thinks she has no I told her, like, people like you and Michael should not be in position of power in a church that's primarily, individuals that are dealing with things that you can't even begin to comprehend. And her response was essentially like, power? We don't have power! Just ask the Pastor Eddie! We don't have power! Just like that, but, obviously much louder. And it's just like, no, you this is narcissism. This is you. It is all about you at this point. You don't care about the other people. You do. She has involved other people in stalking me. Like, to the point that I needed to try and refile a restraining order. I want to make sure that the other people whose lives have been impacted, or, are impacted. I know. Thank you. I'm going to go outside in a second. All right, I'm gonna go do that. Anyway, thank you for your time. I don't foresee you actually spending 2.5 hours watching this, but I appreciate you greatly. I hope all is well, and